Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English in Advance. I am so happy you are here with me today. My name is Jessica, and today we have something really special lined up for you. We are going to spend some quality time together working on your listening skills, expanding your vocabulary, and just generally getting more comfortable with the flow of the English language. This session is designed specifically for B1 to B2 level learners, so if you can understand the main points of clear standard input on familiar matters regularly encountered in work, school, or leisure, and if you can deal with most situations likely to arise while traveling in an area where the language is spoken, then you are in exactly the right place. But even if you are just pushing into that intermediate level, do not worry because I will be speaking clearly, naturally, but not too fast, and we will explore topics that are relevant to everyday life. Before we dive in, I want to ask you a small favor. If you are enjoying this podcast and finding it useful for your English journey, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a chance to practice with me. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to create more free content for wonderful students like you. So thank you in advance for your support. Today, we are going to talk about something that I think touches all of our lives, especially in this modern, fast-paced world, and that is the art of finding balance between work and rest, or what we often call work-life balance. It is a topic that comes up in conversations constantly, whether you are chatting with colleagues in the break room, catching up with friends on the weekend, or even just thinking to yourself about how tired you might feel. We are going to explore this theme through a story, some useful vocabulary, and plenty of natural expressions that native speakers use all the time. I want you to imagine that you are not just listening to a lesson, but that you are sitting down for a coffee with a friend, because that is the vibe we are going for today. Relaxed, educational, and genuinely helpful. Let me start by setting the scene for you because context is so important when you are practicing listening. Imagine a young professional named Mark. Mark is a dedicated architect living in a busy city, maybe London or New York. The city does not matter as much as the pace of life. Mark loves his job. He really does. He loves designing buildings, sketching plans, and seeing his ideas come to life. However, lately, Mark has been feeling a bit overwhelmed. Do you know this word, overwhelmed? It is a powerful adjective. When you are overwhelmed, it means you feel like there is just too much happening, too many tasks, too many emails, too many deadlines, and you feel like you cannot cope with it all. It is that heavy feeling in your chest when you look at your to-do list and it seems endless. So Mark is feeling overwhelmed because his company has just taken on a huge new project, and as the lead designer, the pressure is on him to perform. This brings us to our first set of vocabulary and expressions that I want to weave into our conversation today. When we talk about work, we often talk about deadlines. A deadline is the latest time or date by which something should be completed. For example, the deadline for the report is Friday at 5 p.m. In Mark's case, his deadline is approaching rapidly. He has been working late into the night, he has been skipping meals, and he has not seen his friends in weeks. In English, we have a great idiom for this situation. We say someone is burning the candle at both ends. Can you picture that? Imagine a candle. Usually you light one end, but if you burn it at both ends, it burns out twice as fast. This idiom means you are working very hard, staying up late and getting up early, exhausting yourself in the process. Mark is definitely burning the candle at both ends. Now let's pause for a moment and look at how we use narrative tenses to tell a story like this. Because at B1 and B2 levels, getting these tenses right can really make you sound more fluent. When I tell you about Mark's situation, I might say, Mark had been working hard for months before he finally took a break. Did you hear that? Had been working. This is the past perfect continuous tense. We use it to talk about an action that was happening over a period of time in the past, up until another point in the past. It sets the background. It shows duration. If I just said, Mark worked hard, that is simple past, which is fine, but had been working adds that flavor of exhaustion over time. It implies he was doing it continuously. As you listen to the rest of this script, try to pay attention to these subtle differences in how I describe actions. It will help you tell your own stories much more effectively. So, back to Mark. One evening, Mark is sitting at his desk. It is raining outside, which usually makes him feel cozy, but tonight the rain just feels gloomy. He looks at his computer screen and his eyes are stinging from the brightness. He realizes that he cannot remember the last time he did something just for fun. His whole life has become about this project. He decides in that moment that he needs to step back. This is what we call a breaking point. A breaking point is the moment when stress becomes too much to handle and you decide you must change something. It is a crucial moment. Mark closes his laptop, puts on his coat, and walks out into the rainy city street. Not to go home and sleep, but to just walk and think. I want to stop the story here and ask you a question, and I want you to think about the answer in English in your head. This is great practice for your speaking skills, even if you are just speaking to yourself. Have you ever reached a breaking point in your work or studies? What did you do? Did you take a break, or did you push through? Thinking about these questions helps you connect the English you are learning to your own life, which makes it much easier to remember. As Mark walks, he decides to wander into a small bookstore. There is something about the smell of old books and paper that is very calming. He isn't looking for anything specific, just browsing. Browsing is when you look through things in a leisurely and casual way, without a specific goal. You browse in shops, you browse on the internet. While he is browsing, he notices a small book on a table. The title is The Art of Doing Nothing. He laughs a little bit because doing nothing is exactly what he feels guilty about. He feels like if he isn't working, he is being lazy. But he picks up the book anyway. He finds a comfortable chair in the corner of the shop and starts to read. The book talks about the importance of recharging your batteries. This is another wonderful idiom. Just like your phone needs to be charged to work, your body and mind need rest to function properly. If you do not recharge your batteries, you run out of energy and you become less effective at your job. This concept hits Mark hard. He realizes that by working so much, he might actually be producing lower quality work because his brain is tired. He spends the next hour reading in the shop, and for the first time in weeks, he feels his shoulders drop. The tension leaves his body. He isn't thinking about the deadline, he is thinking about the words on the page. This part of the story highlights a very common feeling that we can discuss using specific adjectives: the feeling of guilt. Many people feel guilty when they rest. We often think, I should be working. That word should is dangerous. It creates pressure. At a B2 level, it is important to learn about modal verbs like should, ought to, and must, and how they affect our emotions. I must work is very strong and rigid. I should work is slightly softer, but still creates an obligation. Mark realizes he needs to change his internal dialogue. Instead of saying, I should be working, he needs to tell himself, I need to rest so I can work better later. Let's look at some synonyms for tired, because using the same word over and over can be boring. If you are just a little tired, you might say you are sleepy. If you are tired after doing exercise, you are exhausted or drained. If you are tired because you have been working hard for a long time, you are weary. And if you are tired in your mind, finding it hard to focus, you are mentally fatigued. Mark was experiencing mental fatigue. He wasn't just physically tired from walking. His brain was tired from making decisions all day. Recognizing the type of tiredness you feel is part of expressing yourself clearly in English. So, Mark buys the book and goes home. He decides to implement a new rule for himself. This rule is called the No Tech Tuesday. On Tuesdays after 6 p.m., he will not look at his phone, he will not check his emails, and he will not watch the news. Instead, he will cook a nice meal, read, or maybe call a friend. The first Tuesday is difficult. He keeps reaching for his phone out of habit. This is what we call a habit. It is an automatic behavior. Breaking a habit is hard, but he persists. He puts his phone in a drawer in another room. Out of sight, out of mind. That is a great expression. If you cannot see something, you stop thinking about it. By putting the phone away, he stops the urge to check it. Over the next few weeks, Mark notices a change. He feels lighter. He smiles more. When he goes back to his architectural plans, he finds that ideas come to him more easily. He is more creative. This illustrates a very important concept in English conversation, which is cause and effect. We use linking words like because, since, as a result, and consequently to show these relationships. Mark rested more, consequently, his work improved. Since he stopped checking emails at night, he slept better. Practicing these linking words will help your speaking and writing flow better. They act like bridges between your ideas. Now, I want to give you a little listening challenge. I am going to describe a scenario, and I want you to visualize it. See it in your mind. Imagine you are on a train. It is a long journey. Across from you sits a person who looks very stressed. They are typing furiously on a laptop. Their brow is furrowed, meaning their eyebrows are pushed together in a frown, and they are sighing loudly. You want to give them some advice based on what we have talked about today. What would you say? In your mind, try to form a sentence. Maybe you would say, "Excuse me, you look overwhelmed. Maybe you should take a break." Or perhaps, "It is important to recharge your batteries." Visualizing interactions like this is a powerful way to practice English when you don't have a partner to speak with. Let's shift gears slightly and talk about how we make plans to relax, using future forms. When we talk about future plans, we often use going to or the present continuous. For example, Mark might say, "I am going to visit my parents this weekend." This is a plan already made. Or, "I am meeting a friend for coffee tomorrow." We use the present continuous for fixed arrangements. But if we are just thinking about it, we might use thinking of. I am thinking of going to the cinema. Thinking of, followed by the ing verb, is a very native way to express a possible future plan. Try to use that structure this week when you talk about your own weekend. Let's go back to Mark's story one last time to wrap it up. Mark successfully finishes his big project. The deadline arrives and he submits his designs. His boss calls him into the office. Mark is nervous. Did he do a good job? His boss smiles and says, "Mark, this is your best work yet. The details are incredible." Mark realizes that by taking care of himself, he did not fail at his job. He actually succeeded more. The story has a happy ending, but it teaches us a lesson. We often think that working harder means working longer, but sometimes working smarter means working less and resting more. I want to talk now about the word productive. This is a favorite word for many English learners, but we often misuse it slightly. We think being productive means doing a lot of things, but being productive really means achieving significant results. You can be busy without being productive. Mark was busy before, but he wasn't being productive because his brain was tired. After he started resting, he became more productive. You can say, "I had a very productive day." That is a great sentence to add to your vocabulary. It implies you feel satisfied with what you accomplished. Now, let's have a quick review of some of the key phrases we have learned today in this conversational flow. We talked about being overwhelmed, which is that feeling of having too much to do. We learned the idiom burning the candle at both ends, which means working too hard day and night. We discussed recharging your batteries, which means resting to get energy back. We looked at the phrasal verb burnout, which means becoming exhausted from overwork. And we talked about the difference between being busy and being productive. If you heard these words in a conversation now, would you feel comfortable understanding them? I hope so. I also want to touch on the pronunciation of some of these words. In English, we have something called word stress. For example, in the word overwhelmed, the stress is on the third syllable. Overwhelmed. Try saying it. Overwhelmed. For productive, the stress is on the second syllable. Productive. Getting the stress right makes a huge difference in how well native speakers understand you. It is not just about the sounds of the letters, but the rhythm of the word. When you listen to me speak, try to hum the rhythm of the sentences. Da-da-da-da. It sounds funny, but it really helps your brain internalize the melody of English. As we move towards the next part of our session, I want to encourage you to not just listen passively. Active listening is key to improvement. What does that mean? It means while you listen, you are engaging your brain. You are predicting what I will say next. You are summarizing what I just said, and you are noticing new words. You can do this anywhere, whether you are on the bus, washing dishes, or walking the dog. Turn the world into your classroom. When you see someone, try to describe their mood in English in your head. He looks anxious. She looks relaxed. They look exhausted. This habit of internal narration is how you bridge the gap between studying English and living in English. We also touched on the idea of out of sight, out of mind. This is a very common proverb. A proverb is a short saying that gives advice or states a general truth. Out of sight, out of mind means that if you do not see something or someone for a while, you stop thinking about them. We used it in the context of Mark putting his phone away. But can you think of another context? Maybe if you have a friend who moves to another country. If you don't chat often, you might drift apart because out of sight, out of mind. Learning proverbs helps you understand the cultural side of the language. It makes you sound more like a native speaker because these phrases are deeply embedded in our culture. Let's not forget the grammar point we discussed briefly, the past perfect continuous. He'd been working hard. This structure is excellent for storytelling. It adds depth. If you are telling a friend about a trip you took, you could say, "I had been saving money for a year before I booked the ticket." See how that gives more background information than just, "I saved money"? It emphasizes the process leading up to the result. Try to write down one sentence about your life using this structure. It might be tricky at first, but once you get it, it opens up a new way of expressing yourself. Thinking back to the topic of work-life balance, it is interesting to see how different cultures view this. In some cultures, working long hours is seen as a sign of dedication. In others, it is seen as poor time management. English is a global language, so you will hear many different perspectives on this. Being able to discuss these cultural differences is a sign of a high-level English speaker. You can use phrases like, "In my country, people tend to," or "I have noticed that in English-speaking cultures." These are great sentence starters for expressing opinions. Let's do one more visualization exercise before we move to our next topic. Close your eyes if you can, or just look away from the screen. Imagine your perfect weekend. Where are you? Are you in the mountains, at the beach, at home? Who are you with? What are you doing? Are you reading, hiking, or sleeping? Now, try to describe that weekend to someone. You could say, "My ideal weekend would involve sleeping late and then having a long breakfast." Using the phrase "would involve" is a sophisticated way to describe a hypothetical situation. It sounds much better than just saying, "I want to sleep." It paints a picture. I hope this deep dive into the topic of balance, stress, and relaxation has been helpful for you. Remember, learning English is not a race. It is a journey. Some days you will feel like you are making huge progress, and other days you might feel stuck. That is completely normal. Just like Mark with his project, sometimes you need to step back and rest. If you feel stuck with your English, maybe take a break from studying grammar books and watch a movie in English instead, or listen to a song. Rest is part of the learning process. Now that we have discussed finding time for rest, let's think about what we actually do with that free time. This brings us to our next topic, hobbies. When we meet someone for the first time, perhaps at a party or a social gathering, one of the first questions we often ask after "What do you do?" is "What do you like to do for fun?" or "Do you have any hobbies?" It is a standard icebreaker, but answering this question can sometimes be tricky if you do not have the right vocabulary to explain exactly what you mean. A hobby is defined as an activity done regularly in one's leisure time for pleasure. Notice that word, leisure. It is a very useful noun. It means use of free time for enjoyment. We often talk about leisure time or leisure activities. It sounds a bit more sophisticated than just saying free time, though both are perfectly fine. Let me introduce you to a character for this segment. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah is a very active person. She doesn't just like to sit at home, she loves to be out and about. Sarah is what we would call an outdoorsy person. This is a great adjective. If someone is outdoorsy, it means they enjoy outdoor activities like hiking, camping, or gardening. Sarah loves hiking. Now, when we talk about hiking in English, we often use specific collocations. A collocation is a natural combination of words that native speakers use together. For example, we say go for a hike or go hiking. We don't usually say do a hike. Sarah goes hiking every weekend. She loves to explore nature. She tells her friends that hiking helps her to clear her mind. This is a beautiful expression. To clear your mind means to get rid of stressful thoughts and feel refreshed. Imagine a blackboard full of writing and you wipe it clean. That is what clearing your mind feels like. Now let's look at the grammar we use when talking about hobbies. This is a very common area where students make small mistakes. In English, when we talk about leisure activities, we often use the structure go plus the ing form of the verb. For example, we go swimming, we go shopping, we go fishing, we go skiing, and we go camping. Notice that pattern. It is very consistent for activities that involve movement and leaving your house to do them. However, for other activities, we use the verb play. We use play for competitive games and sports with balls. We play tennis, we play football, we play golf. But be careful, we do not play swimming and we do not go tennis. Getting this distinction right makes a big difference in sounding natural. Let's go back to Sarah. Sarah doesn't just hike. She also has a passion for photography. This brings us to a different type of hobby, one that is more creative. When we talk about creative hobbies, we often use verbs like paint, draw, write, or take photos. Notice I said take photos. We don't make photos or do photos. We take photos. Sarah loves taking photos of the landscapes she sees on her hikes. She says it allows her to capture the moment. To capture the moment is a lovely idiom that means to preserve a memory, usually with a camera so you can look back on it later. She has a very good eye for composition. Having a good eye means you have a natural talent for seeing beautiful things and arranging them well in a photo or painting. Now, I want you to think about your own hobbies for a moment. Do you prefer active hobbies like sports, or do you prefer creative hobbies like painting or writing? Or maybe you prefer relaxing hobbies like reading. In English, we have great ways to express our preferences. At a B1 level, you might say, I like reading more than sports. But at a B2 level, we can be more expressive. You could say, I tend to lean towards creative hobbies, or I am more of an indoors person, or even, I prefer unwinding with a good book rather than running around outside. Using phrases like tend to, more of a, and rather than adds a lot of nuance to your speaking. Nuance is the subtle difference in meaning. It shows that you have a higher level of control over the language. Let's talk about reading for a bit, as it is a very common hobby. When we talk about books, we have specific vocabulary for the different types. We have fiction, which means stories that are not real, invented by the author. And we have nonfiction, which is based on facts and real events, like biographies or history books. You might say, I am a big fan of crime novels, or I enjoy historical fiction. We also talk about the physical act. You can be engrossed in a book. If you are engrossed, it means you are giving all your attention to it. You are totally absorbed. You look up and realize 3 hours have passed. This is often called a page turner. A page turner is a book that is so exciting that you keep wanting to turn the page to see what happens next. Have you ever read a book that was a real page turner? It is a great feeling, but it can be dangerous if you need to sleep early for work the next day. Moving on, let's consider the social aspect of hobbies. Many hobbies are done alone, like reading or knitting, but many are done in groups. This is where we use the verb join. You can join a club, join a team, or join a class. Joining a club is a fantastic way to improve your English, by the way. If you join a book club, you have to talk about the story. If you join a cooking class, you have to listen to instructions and talk about the food. It forces you to practice. I want to tell you about my friend Mark, not the architect we spoke about earlier, but a different Mark who decided to join a pottery class recently. He'd never done it before. He was a complete beginner. We can say he was green. To be green at something means to be inexperienced. Mark went to his first pottery class and he found it incredibly difficult. He struggled to shape the clay on the wheel. The clay kept spinning off and making a mess. He felt clumsy, but he stuck with it. The phrase, "stick with it," means to continue doing something even though it is difficult. After a few weeks, he started to get the hang of it. To get the hang of it means to learn the skills needed to do something. It implies that you have passed the initial difficult stage and now you understand the basics. Now, Mark loves pottery. He finds it therapeutic. Something is therapeutic if it helps you relax and deal with emotional issues. Working with his hands helps him forget about his office job. This brings us to a key benefit of hobbies. They provide an outlet. An outlet is a way of expressing feelings or abilities that you might not use in your daily job. If you have a stressful job, you need a creative outlet to balance yourself. I want to pause here and give you a listening challenge. I am going to describe a hobby, and I want you to guess what it is. Imagine a person. They are sitting by a river. They have a long rod, which is like a stick, in their hands. There is a line going into the water. They are sitting very still. They are waiting patiently for a fish to bite. What are they doing? Yes, they are fishing. This is a hobby that requires a lot of patience. Did you hear how I described it? I used the present continuous tense. They are sitting, they are waiting. This is the tense we use to describe what is happening right now or to set a scene. When you describe a picture or a scene, use the present continuous. He is running, she is painting, they are laughing. It makes your description vivid and alive. Let's explore some vocabulary related to how much we like or dislike our free time activities. We can say we are passionate about something. This is very strong. I am passionate about playing the piano. It means you love it deeply. A slightly weaker but still positive phrase is keen on. I am quite keen on gardening. This means you like it and enjoy it, but maybe it is not your whole life. If you don't like something, you can say you are not really into it. I am not really into video games. It is a polite way to say you don't enjoy them, or you can say, it is not my cup of tea. This is a classic British English idiom. If something is not your cup of tea, it is not the type of thing you like. For example, horror movies are not my cup of tea. It is a very useful phrase to know, especially if you want to sound a bit more British or just add some flavor to your vocabulary. Speaking of flavors, that brings us perfectly to our next major topic, food. We are going to spend this segment discussing cooking, eating out, and describing flavors, which is a vital skill for everyday life. Whether you are traveling to an English-speaking country or just want to have a conversation with a friend about your favorite meal, this vocabulary is essential. Food is so much more than just fuel for our bodies, isn't it? It is culture, it is memory, and it is a way to bring people together. When we talk about food in English, we often start with taste. The basic tastes are sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. But at a B2 level, we want to be more descriptive. Instead of just saying something is good, we can say it is delicious, scrumptious, or mouth-watering. Mouth-watering is a fantastic adjective. It means the food looks or smells so good that your mouth produces saliva or water in anticipation. Imagine walking past a bakery and smelling fresh bread. That smell is mouth-watering. Let's talk about the verb cook. We use this verb generally, but we also have specific verbs for different methods of cooking. This is often called culinary vocabulary. If you cook something in water, you boil it. We boil eggs, we boil pasta. If you cook something in hot oil, you fry it. We fry eggs, we fry potatoes to make chips or fries. If you cook something in the oven, you bake it or roast it. We usually bake cakes and bread, but we roast meat and vegetables. There is a subtle difference, but bake is usually for things that start as liquid or dough and become solid, while roast is for solid foods that become tender and brown. And then there is grill, which means cooking over direct heat, like a barbecue. Knowing these verbs helps you understand recipes and menus much better. I want to share a short story to put this into context. Last weekend, I decided to host a dinner party for some friends. I wanted to impress them, so I decided to make a traditional roast chicken. I woke up early to prepare. First, I had to prep the ingredients. Prep is short for preparation. It involves washing, peeling, and chopping vegetables. I chopped carrots, potatoes, and onions. Chopping means cutting into small pieces. I seasoned the chicken with salt, pepper, and some herbs. To season means to add flavor. I rubbed the seasoning all over the chicken. Then I put everything in the oven to roast. The smell in the house began to change as the food cooked. It started to fill the house with a savory aroma. Savory is a word we use for food that is salty or spicy, not sweet. While the chicken was roasting, I started on the dessert. I love baking, but it requires precision. You have to be exact with your measurements. I was making a chocolate cake. I mixed flour, sugar, eggs, and cocoa powder. I whisked the eggs and sugar together until they were fluffy. To whisk means to beat or stir rapidly. It is hard work. I poured the batter into a cake tin and put it in the oven. Now, here is a phrasal verb for you: whip up. If you whip up a meal, it means you prepare it quickly and easily. I whipped up a quick salad. But for the cake, I took my time. I didn't want to ruin it. Let's fast forward to the evening. My friends arrived. We started with some appetizers. Appetizers are small dishes served before the main course, also called starters. We had some cheese and crackers. We chatted and caught up on each other's lives. When the main course was ready, I served the roast chicken. My friends loved it. They said it was tender and juicy. These are perfect adjectives for meat. Tender means it is soft and easy to chew. Juicy means it contains a lot of moisture, it isn't dry. No one likes dry chicken. We also had some wine, which complemented the meal. When two things go well together, we say they complement each other. The wine complemented the chicken perfectly. This brings us to the topic of dining out. Going to a restaurant is a great experience, but it involves specific language. When you arrive, the host or hostess will ask, "How many in your party?" This means how many people are eating. You might say, "A table for 2, please." If you haven't booked, you might ask, "Do you have any tables available?" Booking a table is also called making a reservation. I would like to make a reservation for tonight at 7 p.m. It is polite and standard language. Once you are seated, the waiter or waitress will bring you a menu. Take your time to look at it. If you don't understand a word, do not be afraid to ask. You can say, "What does this dish consist of?" Or, "Could you explain this item?" This shows you are curious and engaged. When you are ready to order, you can say, "I will have the," or "I would like the," or "Could I have the?" Using could or would is more polite than saying "I want." "I want the steak" sounds a bit demanding. "I would like the steak" sounds much nicer. Sometimes things go wrong in a restaurant. Maybe the soup is cold or the food is not what you expected. How do you complain politely? This is a difficult skill. You don't want to be rude, but you want the problem fixed. You can say, "Excuse me, this soup is cold," or "I am afraid this isn't what I ordered." The phrase, "I am afraid," is a very British and polite way to introduce a problem. The waiter should apologize and fix it. They might say, "I'm terribly sorry about that. Let me get you a new one." After the meal, you ask for the bill or the check. In the UK, you ask for the bill. In the US, you ask for the check. You might decide to split the bill, which means everyone pays for their own share. Or, if you are feeling generous, you might say, "It is on me." This means you are paying for everyone. "Dinner is on me tonight." It is a nice thing to say if it is your birthday or you want to treat your friends. And finally, if the service was good, you leave a tip. A tip is extra money you give to the staff. The amount varies by country, so it is good to know the custom before you travel. Let's go back to describing taste. We have sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. But there is a fifth taste called umami. This is a Japanese word that has been adopted into English. It describes a savory, meaty taste. Mushrooms, soy sauce, and aged cheese have umami. It is a deep, rich flavor. When describing food, we also talk about texture. Texture is how the food feels in your mouth. Is it crispy? Like a fresh potato chip or a fried chicken skin? Is it creamy? Like ice cream or a thick soup? Is it crunchy? Like raw carrots or nuts? Is it chewy? Like steak or gummy bears? Using these words makes your description so much more vivid. Instead of saying, "The cookie was good," you can say, "The cookie was warm, chewy in the middle, and crispy on the edges." That paints a picture. I want to touch on the grammar of uncountable nouns, because this is a common mistake with food vocabulary. Many food words in English are uncountable: water, rice, pasta, bread, sugar, cheese. We cannot say one rice or two breads. We have to use partitives or quantifiers. We say a grain of rice or a bowl of rice. We say a slice of bread or a loaf of bread. We say a piece of cheese. Learning these combinations is crucial. You don't order a water, usually. You order a glass of water or a bottle of water. If you say, "I want a coffee," it is understood that you mean a cup of coffee. But being precise with a cup of coffee or two coffees, meaning 2 cups, is safer. Let's try a little listening comprehension exercise regarding recipes. I am going to describe a simple process, and I want you to follow the steps in your mind. We are making a fruit salad. First, take a variety of fresh fruits. Wash them thoroughly under cold water. Then, peel the banana and slice it into rounds. Next, chop the apples and pears into bite-sized pieces. Bite-sized means small enough to put in your mouth whole. Hull the strawberries, which means removing the green leafy top. Place all the fruit in a large bowl. Squeeze some fresh lemon juice over the top to keep the apples from turning brown. Finally, toss everything gently together. Toss here means to mix lightly. Serve it cold. Did you understand the verbs? Peel, slice, chop, hull, squeeze, toss. These are very specific action words for the kitchen. We also have many idioms in English related to food. They are used everywhere in business and daily life. For example, that is just not my cup of tea. We already learned that one. How about he is the big cheese? This means he is the boss, the important person. Or, that car cost an arm and a leg. Wait, that is not food, but that is a lot of dough. Dough is the mixture for bread, but in slang, it means money. He is making a lot of dough. Piece of cake means something is very easy. The exam was a piece of cake. And if you are very busy, you might say, I have a lot on my plate. It means you have a lot of responsibilities or tasks to do right now. Imagine a plate piled high with food. You can't fit any more on it. That is your schedule. Now let's leave the kitchen and head out into the world. For the final part of our session, we are going to talk about travel. Travel is one of those universal topics that everyone loves to discuss. Whether it is dreaming about a future holiday, sharing stories from a past trip, or complaining about the stress of getting there, it is a topic rich with specific vocabulary, useful phrasal verbs, and interesting situations, making it perfect for B1 to B2 level practice. So sit back, relax, and let's imagine we are jetting off to a new destination together. When we think about travel, the first thing that usually comes to mind is the planning stage. Some people love planning every single minute of their trip, while others prefer to be more spontaneous. If you like to plan everything, you might be the type of person who creates a detailed itinerary. An itinerary is a plan of a journey, including the route and the places you will visit. You might book your accommodation months in advance. The word accommodation is a general term for a place to stay, like a hotel, a hostel, a guest house, or an apartment. You might look for a place that is centrally located, meaning it is in the middle of the city, close to all the main attractions. On the other hand, if you are spontaneous, you might just book a flight and figure out the rest when you arrive. We often call this traveling on the fly or winging it. To wing it means to improvise or do something without a plan. It can be exciting, but it can also be risky if you arrive in a busy city and all the hotels are fully booked. Let's talk about the different types of trips people take. You might go on a city break, which is a short holiday spent in a city, usually just for a weekend. You might go on a beach holiday to relax and soak up the sun, or you might go on an adventure holiday, which involves physical activities like hiking, rafting, or climbing. Another popular way to travel is backpacking. A backpacker is someone who travels with a backpack, usually on a budget, staying in hostels and moving from place to place. This is popular among young people who want to see the world without spending a fortune. We often use the phrase to see the world to mean traveling to many different countries. Now let's fast forward to the day of departure. You have your bags packed, your passport is ready, and you head to the airport. The airport is a place full of very specific English vocabulary. When you arrive, the first thing you do is check in. You go to the check-in counter where an agent will ask for your passport and your booking reference. They will ask you questions like, where are you flying to today? And how many bags are you checking in? You might have checked luggage, which goes in the cargo hold of the plane, and carry-on luggage, which you take with you onto the plane. It is important to know the weight restrictions. If your bag is too heavy, you might have to pay an excess baggage fee. That can be quite expensive, so always weigh your bags at home if you can. After checking in, you receive your boarding pass. This is the document that allows you to get on the plane. It tells you your seat number, your gate number, and the boarding time. Next, you go through security. This can be a stressful part of the journey. You have to put your bags through an X-ray machine and walk through a metal detector or a body scanner. You often have to remove your belt, your shoes, and your jacket, and take out your liquids and laptops. The officers are looking for prohibited items, things that are not allowed on the plane. Once you are through security, you are in the departure lounge. This is where you wait for your flight. You might browse the duty-free shops, which sell perfume, alcohol, and chocolates without tax, or you might sit and people watch. Listening to airport announcements is a skill in itself. You will hear phrases like, "Flight BA123 to London is now boarding at gate 14. Boarding means passengers are getting on the plane. If you hear "final boarding call," you need to run because they are about to close the doors. And sometimes the one word no traveler wants to hear, delayed. If a flight is delayed, it means it will leave later than scheduled. If it is canceled, it means it will not leave at all. In that case, you might have to be rebooked onto another flight. It can be frustrating, but it is all part of the travel experience. Once you are on the plane, you stow your luggage in the overhead compartment or under the seat in front of you. The flight attendants will do a safety demonstration, showing you how to use the seat belt, oxygen mask, and life vest. Then the plane takes off. During the flight, you might have a layover or a stopover. This is a stop at an intermediate airport. A layover is usually short, just a few hours, while a stopover can be longer, maybe even a few days. When the plane lands, you have to go through immigration and customs. Immigration is where they check your passport and visa. The officer might ask, "What is the purpose of your visit?" You might answer, "I am here for tourism," or "I am here for business." Then you collect your luggage at the baggage claim carousel. Finally, you walk through the arrivals hall, and you are in a new country. One of the most exciting but sometimes difficult parts of travel is navigating a new city. You have to find your way around. This involves giving and asking for directions. Let's review some essential direction vocabulary. Go straight on means continue in the same direction. Turn left or turn right. You might hear, take the first left or go past the supermarket. Go past means to go beyond something. If something is on the corner, it is at the intersection of two streets. If it is opposite something, it is directly across from it. For example, the museum is opposite the park. And if you are looking for a specific address, you might ask a local, "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to this street?" Most people are happy to help, but sometimes, even with directions, you might get lost. Don't panic. Getting lost can actually lead you to discover hidden gems, places that are beautiful, but not many tourists know about them. Accommodation is a huge part of the travel experience. We mentioned hotels, but let's look at the vocabulary for staying in one. When you arrive at a hotel, you go to the reception or the front desk to check in. You might be asked for a credit card for a deposit. A deposit is a sum of money held by the hotel in case you damage something or use the minibar. The receptionist will give you your key card. In your room, you might find a booklet listing the amenities. Amenities are useful features like a swimming pool, a gym, or a spa. If you need anything, you can call the front desk or use room service to have food brought to your room. When you leave, you check out. You usually have to check out by a certain time. often 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. If you want to stay longer, you might ask for a late checkout. Let's move on to some travel idioms that native speakers use all the time. If you travel a long distance, you might say you are traveling halfway across the world. If you are excited and ready to go, you can say you are raring to go. If you are traveling light, it means you are not taking much luggage. We also have the idiom, hit the road. This means to begin a journey. We should hit the road early to avoid traffic. If you live out of a suitcase, it means you are traveling so much that you don't unpack your clothes. They stay in your suitcase. This is common for business travelers, and if you need a break from your routine, you might say you need a change of scenery. I want to tell you a short story about a travel mishap I had a few years ago. A mishap is a minor mistake or accident. I was flying to a conference, and I had a very tight connection. That means the time between my first flight landing and my second flight taking off was very short. When my first flight landed, it was delayed on the tarmac, the paved area where planes park. By the time I got off the plane, I only had 15 minutes to catch my next flight. I had to run through the airport, pass through security again, and find the gate. I was running out of breath. I arrived at the gate sweating and stressed, but the door was just closing. I managed to get on the plane just in time. We use the phrase, by the skin of my teeth, to describe doing something successfully but only just barely. I made the flight by the skin of my teeth. It was a stressful experience, but looking back, it is a funny story to tell. Another aspect of travel is cultural differences. When you go to a new country, things might be different from home. The food, the greetings, the traffic, even the way people queue. Queue is the British English word for a line of people waiting for something. In some countries, queuing is very orderly. In others, it is more of a crowd. It is important to be respectful of local customs. We often use the phrase, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. This proverb means you should follow the customs and behavior of the local people. If you are in a country where people take off their shoes before entering a house, you should do the same. It shows respect and helps you connect with the culture. Let's not forget about the financial side of travel. You need to pay for things. We use different terms for money. In the UK, it is pounds. In the US, dollars. In Europe, euros. You might exchange your currency at a bureau de change or a bank. The exchange rate determines how much foreign money you get for your own money. Nowadays, many people just use credit cards or travel cards, which is convenient. But you should always carry a little bit of cash, just in case. Some places might not accept cards, or the card machine might be broken. You don't want to be stuck without a way to pay. As we wrap up our travel segment, I want you to imagine your dream destination. Close your eyes for a moment. Where are you? Are you walking through a busy market in Marrakesh? Are you skiing down a snowy mountain in the Alps? Are you relaxing on a white sandy beach in the Maldives? Now, try to describe this scene to a friend in English. Use the vocabulary we have learned. I am strolling through a vibrant market, smelling the spices and seeing colorful fabrics. I am breathing in the fresh mountain air and enjoying the breathtaking view. I am feeling the warm sun on my skin and listening to the sound of the waves. Describing a scene using the present continuous tense helps bring the listener into your experience. It makes your storytelling more engaging. We have spent a wonderful time together today exploring these three major topics. work-life balance, hobbies, and travel. We have learned a tremendous amount of vocabulary, from overwhelmed to outdoorsy to itinerary. We have practiced grammar points like the past perfect continuous and narrative tenses. We have looked at idioms like burning the candle at both ends, piece of cake, and hit the road. I hope you feel that your English has improved just by listening to this session. Remember, listening is the foundation of language learning. The more you listen, the more natural the language will sound to you, and the easier it will be to speak. I want to leave you with one final thought. Learning a language is like traveling. It is a journey, not a destination. There is no finish line. There is always more to learn, more to explore, and more to discover. You will have moments where you feel fluent and confident, and moments where you struggle to find the right word. That is completely normal. The most important thing is to enjoy the process. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you are trying. Every time you speak English, you are taking a step forward on your journey. Thank you so much for joining me, Jessica, on English in Advance. It has been an absolute pleasure to be your guide today. If you found this session helpful, please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to create more content for you. If you want to practice more, check out the description box for links to our other videos and resources. Until next time, keep listening, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep speaking. Safe travels on your English journey, everyone. Goodbye for now.